Welcome to the People in Your Neighborhood show. Remember that skit on Sesame Street from when you were young, where they would come on screen and they would sing a happy song about the people in your neighborhood, and then they would introduce you to some of the different people that work in your neighborhood? That's what we do here. We introduce you to some of the people that work in your neighborhood. So once again, welcome and enjoy learning about some of the people that work in your neighborhood. Hello and welcome to all of our watchers, listeners, and readers out there. I'm Jeremy Loth, the host of the People in Your Neighborhood show. Today we'll be talking a little bit with Mitchell Palmer with Gentleman Barber. Mitch, do you want to introduce yourself?
Hi, I'm founder and president of Gentleman Barber and the executive room at Gentleman Barber. It's good to meet you. Thanks for having me on, Jeremy.
Yeah, you bet. No problem. So we want to talk a little bit today about your story, and we want to start off by finding out what your unique solution is that you offer to your clients. What makes you different from all your competition?
So I think when I was trained as a barber, I was trained by a man who'd been in the business for about 65 years. He was famous for telling us and would tell me all the time, you don't have to be the greatest hair cutter. Barbering is an experience rather than just cutting hair and shaving faces. He always talked about, he used to tell us, I can teach a monkey to cut hair. You came to a barber school. It's time for you to learn to be barbers, not just mere hair cutters. So I think I took that to heart. That meant a lot to me because people are, I'm more of a people person. I know this sounds like a bad job interview, but I'm more of a people person. I really enjoy people that I like, I enjoy even more, and providing them an experience rather than just a place to come to get a haircut or a face shave was, I think my main passion. And as I started doing that more and more, I think the passion just kind of grew for, giving men a place where they can go and feel important and special. I mean, I think men that come here work hard. They're constantly going, and having a chance to just switch all of that off and just exist with their barber who, cares about them. And the nice byproduct of that is not only do I get to do this for a living, but I also get to be adopted by, a couple hundred families along the way, and I feel like, I become a little bit more part of their personal lives as well as their barber.
Yeah, definitely. So I really liked that you talked about the difference between a barber and a hair cutter. What did your teacher explain to you? How is being a barber different from being a hair cutter?
Well, barbering again is kind of an overall service oriented idea. It's more a matter of how you greet a client, how you treat them the whole time they're in your barber chair or in your facility, as well as how you exit them out the door. I've got to the point now where I barber pretty much exclusively for a group of clients by appointment only. But early on, when I still took walk-ins, as I would get to know some of my clients, it was at times difficult to remember all of their names. And I'm ashamed to say that, but the weird thing is I could tell you how many children they had, what they did for a living, where they worked, if they were married, if they were not married, what their children were into, sports or music or theater and things like that. I think it's a matter of caring more about giving top-notch service, which means, you go to some barbering establishments and the gentleman who trained me used to talk about, you go to a barbering establishment and they whip the cape, the cover to keep the hair off of you, up and over your head. Well, that's not a very pleasant experience, actually. I mean, it looks cool. Sometimes you get the cape to pop, but putting a cape on like that is kind of erratic behavior. It's kind of distracting. It's certainly, if there's still residual hair on the cape from the last guy, you're just begging for it to fly all over the place. So little touches like that, gently. He talked about slow, methodical, intentional moves and gestures. Those kinds of things that keep the client feeling comfortable and confident, as opposed to erratic behaviors and quick darting motions with cutting implements. It's kind of he talked about the golden rule of barbering all the time, which is if you wouldn't like it done to you, you should definitely not do it to your clients.
Oh, very cool. I like how you talked about the cape thing, that little touches like that. I can feel that the difference in that. That's very cool.
Well, I think he used to tell us, I spent literally 2 weeks learning the proper draping method to get somebody covered. He wouldn't let us on the barber school floor until we could properly drape a client. Until you could do that, he said, you weren't worth your salt. There's no key indicator about a barber or the lack of the skill that a barber possesses, more so than proper draping technique. If you don't do that right, you can't be a barber, or you shouldn't call yourself one. I always like those little attentions to detail that he was willing to share.
Oh, that's very cool. So I know that the executive room is set up quite uniquely. What is different about the executive room than the way that you used to do business?
So I'm a member of an old charitable organization that's been around for hundreds of years. I kind of like that club, that gentleman's club, not the modern day version of gentleman's club, of course, but that kind of old school gentleman's club where, members would come, they'd interact with one another, they maybe have a meal together, but they'd relax and exist with each other in an environment that felt, cozy and warm, kind of like, if you have that idea of, what Hollywood has shown us of that, dad's old den where he has the big leather wingback chairs and the expensive wood paneling and,
Yeah.
a row of bookshelves. The executive room at Gentleman Barber is set up to kind of try and mimic that and give men a place where they can come. They can sit in something a little bit more luxurious than just, a tile floor and fluorescent lighting. And then have an experience that's a little bit more, I don't know, maybe it's a little more fantasy, a little bit more a feeling of belonging to something that is old and maybe stodgy, but kind of cool and timeless. So the executive room is a VIP experience. It's one-on-one. I have a good group of clients that understand that, with COVID, there's a little bit of change in the frequency and the number of people that are in at any time. But when a customer is in my barber chair and another client is here a little bit early and waiting for their service to begin, we have kind of an unspoken rule, which is you'll get your time in the barber chair, and when it's your time, it's your time. Now, when clients choose to interact with each other, that's, I think, when the magic and the real cool things really happen, because we realize they know somebody who the other one knows. They have the same interests. I've discovered that my clients, while coming from a real wide variety of different life backgrounds and experiences, are completely the same in so many of those just basic hardwired ways. And we just kind of dig being able to hang out with other like-minded men and, figure out what we know that the other one knows, and then be, you know, kind of astounded and passionate about learning new things that one of our members know that the rest of us don't know. It's just kind of that strange thing where I found out, you know, months back that a client I've barbered for years is a published author. He's written 5 or 6 books. They're all available on Barnes and Noble or Amazon, and yeah, I just, that kind of thing is kind of cool to be able to see. And I don't think that happens in a more sterile and public environment. I think that there has to be a more cozy and more intimate environment where those kind of things can be comfortable to talk about. When I was a kid and you'd go to a barber shop back in the, you know, I wasn't a kid in the 30s or 40s, but on into the 60s and 70s, you'd go to a barber shop and it was kind of a community experience. You'd go there, you'd see people from your small town or your neighborhoods, and that's where men would sit around and catch up, you know, and find out what was going on in each other's lives, or complain about the government, or, you know, or care about one another, you know, in an environment where it was okay to do that. Nowadays, the public, more open barber shop is a little too public. It's a little too open, and it's a little too uncomfortable to share who you really are deep down inside. The executive room, I think, gives that opportunity for it to be a more cozy, even if it's 3 or 4 guys. It's a little more cozy one-on-one experience because it's geared toward, you've come today and your unique trip to the barber shop or the executive room here at Gentleman Barber is yours, and it belongs to you, and who you choose to let into that experience while you're here is completely up to you.
I love it. That's great. So before the executive room, what was life like?
Well, I started, you're speaking, I think, more specifically about my barbering life. I had a 5-chair, which turned into a 6-chair barbershop. Very bright, very open, not all this coziness, very, very stark, fluorescent lit. You know, albeit I think a nice environment. We had a nice, bright, open, welcoming environment. But it was, you know, a barber here, another barber, you know, 10 feet away, another barber, another 10 feet away. And the unique layout of that barber shop was sometimes the barber was 10 feet away from the first one. Sometimes they're 7 or 8 feet away because of how we had to lay it out. But life there was nice. I mean, it was a good, open, welcoming environment. It's amazing to me how quickly my clients that supported Gentleman Barber, the public side of things, embraced kind of the idea. In fact, they were a lot of the inspiration for the executive room. But yes, I worked with a lot of people. There was a little bit more confusion, a little more going on, a little more tendency for my other subcontracted barbers to come and say, hey, Mitch, we're having a problem with the register, or hey, this isn't working right. And so it was an awful lot of opportunity for my customers' experience to be abbreviated or interrupted, or, you know, distractions came about because I was trying to keep the rest of the shop running fluidly. I discovered something kind of unique when the executive room began to start taking its form. It was, I moved to the back of, there's 2 rooms to the public barber shop, and I moved to the back room. The idea there was my newer barbers that needed to build a clientele would be up front and center, where they could be the first ones to greet new clients walking through the door, whereas my clients would come to the back room and we just kind of have our experience back there. Still, it was a nice, you know, it was a nice foot in the door of that more intimate one-on-one experience, but it wasn't quite the same thing as, you know, the seclusion of having one barber chair, and the rest of the space in the executive room at Gentleman Barber is geared toward, you know, creating an experience, an environment around that focal point of the barber chair where service is rendered.
Yeah.
But prior to this, it was a good experience. I worked with a lot of really fine professional barbers. My clients, and a lot of them that I barbered for early on, started to have the need to go to some of the other barbers, because as I began to get busier, I began to work by appointment only, and it just started to make sense that I needed something that did kind of seclude things away from the rest of what was going on.
Yeah.
I even entertained the idea back then of having my clients, do something kind of cool and geeky, like come through the back door. That didn't ever work out really all that well, because the back door here is a little harder to access. So, but yeah, it wasn't a bad experience at all. It was a very warm and friendly environment. It was just a little too much confusion at times. Although, it's still a pretty respectful environment, where if you're with a client, you're with a client. Let, you and your client exist together, and, save the rest till later. But I found that subcontractors, employees, if you're an easy answer and they can just come to you and tap you on the shoulder and ask you for a quick minute of help, they'll do that rather than look for their own solution.
Right.
So, being able to separate a little bit later, and have some delineated, or, a demarcation between the two spaces was kind of what I think it needed to get to the step where it was a real VIP one-on-one experience.
Gotcha. So what happened that made you resolve to change things up?
Well, like I've kind of already mentioned, moving to the back room made sense, because I had a couple of new barbers that were fresh out of barber school, really good at what they did, but not in possession of a whole lot of clients and a lot of opportunity to barber. So at the time, my wife and I worked in the barber shop. We were both pretty busy. So we moved to that back room, as I mentioned earlier. And that was kind of, foot in the door, step one toward the idea of secluding things a little for my clients to have a little bit more private one-on-one experience. But along the way, in the building where the barbershop is located, my neighbor, who had a trophy and apparel store, bought his own place somewhere else, moved out. And the landlord here, my landlord, asked if I wouldn't be interested in leasing the whole building. Of course, at the time, that was the furthest thing from my mind. So he, being the bright marketing advertiser that he is, he gave me a key and he said, look, why don't you spend a week or two, and when you get a chance, walk in next door and just get a feel for the place and see if it isn't something, maybe you'll change your mind. And, when I got the key and walked in here, my imagination just kind of went wild, and I pictured exactly what you see kind of in the background here. I pictured a row of bookshelves and titles, that are pretty eclectic. I pictured wingback chairs and cool things hanging on the wall, and a little more of that club type, upper crusty atmosphere. So from there, I knew, I think I almost, because of the financial obligation it would create, I was kind of torn, because I knew I was going to lease this space, and I also wondered how the heck I was going to be able to do it. And a customer of mine and a group of his colleagues that work together in business consulting actually volunteered to sit down with me and kind of brainstorm through some of this. It was kind of cool. The part of the room you see behind me, as I was trying to kind of outfit this and make it look a little bit more like that finished club atmosphere, or men's lounge atmosphere, I actually draped across here a big sheet of visqueen with a sign on it that said "coming soon," and started barbering for my clients over here, and that raised a lot of curiosity. And actually, a few of the clients from next door that would just come in and come to whomever was available started to ask questions because of some of the great guidance I got early on from my friend John to build some interest, you know, to pique some curiosity.
Hmm.
And it was pretty rough for a while. I mean, the walls had been poorly treated when racks and shelving came off from the last tenant. Needed a touch up of paint, but even at that, I had a client come in one day, secretly steal a piece of the paint chip, came back with a matched few gallons of paint, and actually used to operate his own painting company and offered to help me paint the place out and get it looking ship shape. So, you know, early on that enthusiasm came, and it came from people who signed on automatically. You know, if they were coming to the executive room at Gentleman Barber, so much the better, you know, but they were more than willing to even become part of the process, which meant for me, it was cool that I had clients that would sign on and start kind of rolling up their sleeves and making the executive room possible by just lending their unique skills and background and abilities to help me get it started. It was a little intimidating at first, but I was really super excited about it. And it's been going now for a little over 2.5 years, and it's been great.
Good to hear. What are some of the obstacles that you had to face while you were going through all of that?
Well, obviously how to pay for it, but we came up pretty early on, that group of gentlemen with my friend John Rogers, who came in to consult with me. They said, you know, this is a club type atmosphere. Why don't you have a club type subscription or membership? So I rolled that out pretty early, and oddly enough had, you know, a dozen men sign on for it immediately. That's an unlimited barbering service membership, with, you know, full access during business hours. I had people come in that need a space to meet with a client. That's jumped off and been a really good thing, because I picked up a few new clients when I've had existing clients come in here to just have a, you know, intimate one-on-one with a client somewhere tucked around in the corner by the library. And, you know, it intrigues a potential new client to start on. But you know, spending the money to change the lighting in here. It used to be, you know, the awful fluorescent lighting. Had to take out the drop tile ceiling, put in the track lighting, and make it a little bit more homey, a little more of that clubby, loungy atmosphere. So a lot of it was financial. Then, of course, some of it was time. But I began barbering here again with the, you know, the wall of this queen, to keep it separate from the rest of the goings on behind the scenes. I think it had to be probably time and the money, or the financial investment in it, while trying to keep the barbershop up and running. I obviously need to continue to serve my clients. That's probably the one obstacle that was the trickiest. I don't think it was ever really too awful, because my clients were excited to see what was coming. And as we talked about it more, they were, you know, very supportive of it and very eager to see it off the ground. So got a lot of patience from them. So some of the hiccups, or some of the challenges, were made a lot easier, because my clients were really gung-ho to get it going. So they were willing to put up with some inconveniences and some waiting to see what would happen. Although a few of them would say, you know, this remodel has been happening for over a month. When are we going to get to see something new? So that was kind of fun. You know, they kept me honest though, which you know, I could have dragged my feet a lot more and created a whole new challenge if it weren't for the fact that my clients kept me going in the right direction.
That's a really cool story. It's really cool to hear about all the people that chipped in to help you put it together.
Yeah, a good friend of mine and longtime barbering client helped me do all the electrical work here. He's, he's licensed that way. And I never knew track lighting could be quite as difficult. I worked for a lighting company years ago in another lifetime, but it's a little different installing it in these rafters than it is installing it in a regular house. So without Marty's help, I'm not sure exactly how smoothly that would have gone. And at some point, you of course have to cut the power. You have to commit to taking out the drop tile ceiling and all your fluorescent lighting. And now the room's completely dark without anything. And that had to be done in a weekend, which meant, Sunday, because Marty worked on Mondays. And I worked on Saturday here at the executive room at Gentleman Barber. So yeah, I had a lot of help, and a lot of people actually really went out of their way to sacrifice quite a bit to help get it going. But I think the excitement just kept building as it developed. And it's kind of an interesting and unique experience, because there are a handful of my clients out there that have more into this than just signing on with Mitchell to go next door in this executive environment. And they actually have a little bit of a claim on it and a little bit of a fingerprint on it too.
I was going to say that all those people that chipped in to help you in many different ways must have some buy-in and feel some ownership and some skin in the game to help you succeed.
I had a few people, I had one or two small appliances that were contributed by clients. Obviously paint, electrical work. Marty worked for an electrical supply company at the time. Marty's moved across the country to Pittsburgh to be closer to grandchildren by Marty. But without that, it had been a lot bigger job. I had Marty shopping for all the necessaries and the right parts and guiding me that way. And Richard contributing some small appliances so that we had a fridge, we had some refreshments and things like that the clients could partake of. The paint, Jason was amazing. He came one day and just said, "Hey, I'm painting tonight, so I don't know if you got stuff you got to do, but if you do, give me a key, I'll lock up when I'm done." Jason came back a few weeks after we got the electrical done and sprayed out the ceiling for me, which is just amazing, given that he's not a painter anymore. That's not what he does for a living. But he's now in marketing and advertising, but willing to come out here on a Sunday, 2 Sundays, and paint and spray out the ceiling. They definitely aren't going anywhere else, because they kind of feel a little bit like this belongs to them, which is part of the unique experience of the executive room, that my clients do feel like this is their club, their lounge, or their hangout.
Very cool. What results have you seen for yourself in your life from implementing this new strategy with the executive room?
I mentioned a little bit early on in this conversation, when I worked in the community with all the other barbers and all the other clients, it started as a 1-chair barbershop with just me here. It then developed to 2 and 3 and 4, and finally, 6 barbers plus me. The great thing about that is that all the clients that came there for most of its existence in that public barbershop where Gentleman Barber started, were clients I had barbered for at one time or another during the period of time it's been here. And not everybody wants to work by appointment, so they want to just walk in, take whoever is available. With all of those clients, hundreds, I should think, as well as 5 or 6 other barbers working, it was interruption after interruption after interruption after interruption, which weren't unwelcome interruptions. But if I try and put myself in my client's shoes, here I am leaving every few minutes to go do something, and it's not every client, it's not every day, it's not, you know, every time, you know, Jack or Jim or Joe come by, but on occasion it is, and I'm very self-conscious about that because they've come for me and I'm somewhere else. That's not the way I was trained. It's not how I would like to be treated. So at the same time, you know, what a unique, amazing group of barber shop clients I've been able to work for along the way, because every one of them would take the attitude, hey, Mitch, you got a business to run. Go take care of business. I'm fine. Don't worry about me. So I think those things are probably the ones that stand out the most. It was nice to get a chance to be one-on-one with my clients and remove myself from that. Although the experience of, you know, it was like, for those of you who remember Cheers, Norm would walk into Cheers, the bar in Boston, and everybody would yell out, Norm, you know. So, but people would come into my barber shop and everybody would yell out, Mitch, because, you know, I'm here. And you know, the good people that this place attracted just came here to get a haircut, barbering services, but also to see the barbers that worked here, starting with the guy that had been here the longest. So I was in kind of a unique position that way, because when you've been here the longest, you're the one that everybody is more likely to remember. And for some reason or other, they'd come in here with fond memories of me instead of those of you who know me personally would have a few to draw from that would be like, oh, well, I remember this time. I'm like, yeah, okay, it's enough. But no, it's you know, it's kind of that, I don't know if it makes sense, but it's kind of a blessing and a curse kind of thing. I don't get to see all those same old faces that have come and supported this from when I needed as many clients as I could get my hands on. I didn't have two sticks to rub together some days, you know. But it was also nice to be able to gear things toward and focus on those people that were willing to double and triple and quadruple down with me as the executive room developed into something that I'm really proud of today.
Fantastic. And what experience do your customers now have? What have you seen change about them?
What experience they have is kind of hard, you know, hard to guess. I'm hoping the experience is a good one. I'm getting feedback that it's a good experience. The executive room has been a really unique thing in that I have a customer named Chris, and one day Chris is here and waiting on his opportunity to sit in the barber chair and get his hair cut, his barbering services. And as my customer in the chair, just before Chris exits, we go to the cash register. I tell Chris and this other customer, hey, these are two men, you two need to know each other. Introduce them. They laughed, how you doing? It's nice to meet you. And Chris said, you know, the one unique thing that I find odd and a bit comical is that every time I'm in here, you introduce me to somebody I have to know. It's like I'm waiting for the time when I come to your executive room and there's somebody, yeah, you don't need to know him. It's just never happened. But you know, Chris illustrated a point, which is that I think the one thing that I have definitely noticed with the executive room in its development and its growth is that, you know, my customers seem to continually have the same experience of, wow, thank goodness this came along, because all these great people I've met, I would have never met without something a little more intimate like we've created here in the executive room. And to Chris's point, pretty much I can't think of a person that if you come here, you don't need to know these people, because these are some of the most amazing, most successful, most multifaceted, convoluted people on the planet, but yet the most giving and caring human beings in the world. And you know, it reminds me, I think in the fact that they interact so well together, and that they've adopted exactly the kind of concept that I hoped for, which is more of a community, albeit a little exclusive from the public barber shop. One of the instructors at the barber school, not my master, but somebody who came on board with the school a few years after I had graduated and moved into the private sector. My master had trained him some 38 years earlier, and then he came on to join the barber school and be the master's right-hand man as an instructor. There's a little snippet of a video that they play in the lobby at the barber school, and it's Milton talking about the barbering profession. He says, you know, here's the thing: if you finish barber school, you get your training, you take that seriously, you become licensed, you go out and you find a place where you're going to work, or you open your own place, and then you work for a few years and develop a clientele that become a consistent group of people that come into you and support your business and keep it running. And once you've gone through a little bit of that, paid a little bit of dues, it takes a couple of years on average, he says. And then what you're left with is you have a career where you go to work every day, you get to hang out with the people you know the best and love the most and respect and admire above anybody else on the planet, and they pay you to hang out with them. So, you know, I think my clients have embraced the concept of the executive room here at Gentleman Barber, because they get the same, albeit in smaller snippets than I do as the proprietor. They get the same experience. They get to come spend their money with the executive room and me, but they also get to meet some of the really amazing, cool people that are here every hour of the day that I'm open. It's a remarkable experience.
Wow, that's really cool. Definitely makes you want to be a part of that network. And
I have a little bit of a slogan. Sorry to interrupt. My slogan is this: if you don't know the people that are coming to the executive room at Gentleman Barber, you really should know them. You need to know these people, unless you're one of those people. And then this isn't the barbershop for you. I don't know if that makes a whole lot of sense. Not a very fluid or very well rehearsed slogan, but yeah, the idea is the people that come here are exactly the sort of people you need to know, unless you're the sort of people we don't want to know. Little exclusive, but I don't apologize for that exclusivity. Not everybody should have access to my clients. They're the coolest people I know on the planet. Example is the host of this fine program, Jeremy. You've been a long time supporter of both Gentleman Barber and the executive room, and I think one barber who at one time had to be in school somewhere. I think the support has been nonstop from you all through. So,
well, thank you very much.
It might be better to turn the question back on you, as a matter of fact, and say, as a client and supporter of the executive room at Gentleman Barber, maybe you're better equipped to answer the question of what my client's experience is, but I won't put you on the spot.
It's really been fantastic. It's great to have somebody that can pick right up where we left off last conversation and have them know about me and care about me and what's going on in my life. And, you know, it's great to have my hair cut as well.
Well, you've been a great client, as has your son. I love you guys like family. Awkward pause. But yeah, I'm glad that that's the experience you have. And I tell my clients often, you know, if that's not the experience you have, you need to, you know, kick somebody up the backside and speak out. And my customers are very willing to say, hey, you know, I think this is missing the mark a little bit. That doesn't happen very often because little fine tuning tweaks along the way, my clients are always willing to get feedback and support and even ideas. And we've implemented some cool things that have been suggestions from clients along the way. If you don't mind, can I share one?
Certainly.
So my good friend and client Richard is the owner of a communications company, and nowadays it used to be Richard would have been the proprietor founder of a telephone company, right? A telephony company. He'd set up your telephone system at your office building. But nowadays, when you say about communications company, it's literally everything. I mean, it's text to speech, telephones, interactive voicemail, and you know, all kinds of things I can't even imagine. But early on, Richard signed on for this unlimited monthly membership, which is $150 a month that these people pay, but they can come in whenever they want, as often as they want. They get to bring a guest once a month for a barbering service. They get full access to the executive room while it's open. We're working a little bit on a new unlimited barbering subscription to try and get a few more people to realize the advantages of that. And I'll have more information coming out about that probably over the next month and a half. But Richard's suggestion early on, because he does own this company where he deals with some pretty big companies and some execs, was why don't you offer to people who own a company that want to do something other than provide pizza to an office where they're trying to do business or where they're trying to show appreciation for their clients? Why don't you sell me an executive room membership for a corporate membership? So what Richard came up with was the idea of buying a second membership on top of his personal membership. And what he does is uses that to invite some of his clients, you know, at his discretion, to come in and get some pampering at the executive room, give them a chance to see what it's like, and also give them a chance to relax a little bit in an environment and switch off everything at their office. So, you know, that's I think an amazing example of how my customers kind of keep me up to snuff and offer new ideas that I might be a little too close to it to conceive of things like that. So, you know, if you're that guy and you have a company out there and you serve a lot of clients, you know, there's also a corporate membership available to you so that you can entertain your clients a little bit here and there. Something a little more unique rather than movie tickets, or especially nowadays, or pizza or donuts or that kind of thing. Richard sent a number of his clients to me, and they've proven to be amazing additions to the executive room. So when you have that kind of buy-in, it's hard to argue.
Yeah, I love it. That's a great idea. Always innovating. So, a couple more questions. What has changed most about yourself through this whole journey that you've been on?
I think it's pretty simple. Prior to this, I spent a lot of time in my life, both professional and personal life. Is there such a thing as a personal career? Both in my professional and my personal career, I've spent a lot of time becoming enthusiastic and excited to start new projects. I have at times started a project, stayed, you know, interested in it, but lost that excitement. And I've come to call that my difficulty in finishing. Gentleman Barber in particular, and the executive room at Gentleman Barber as it came into being a couple, 2 or 3 years ago, were the first 2 times that I finished something in a way that I actually surprised myself. I'm abundantly proud of what Gentleman Barber and the executive room at Gentleman Barber have become, because it's the first and second time I laid out some grand schemes and plans and actually followed through and put the finishing touches on it. And I'm not saying that in the past, I didn't finish projects that I would start. I would finish them, but I would finish them with a little less enthusiasm than the way they were started. The excitement would kind of die down, and I would finish to finish instead of finish something with a finishing touch to it. And Gentleman Barber, and especially the executive room at Gentleman Barber, are two of my biggest victories in, you know, in the whole of my life, professional or personal, where I've conceived of something, the excitement's grown, and I've finished it well and put the cherry on top, so to speak, just where it should be, not a little off to the side, or not, you know, laying on the side of the table next to it because it fell off. But yeah, I'm proud of that. And I think the clientele have helped to demonstrate that. Maybe it took till I was 42, 43, 44 years old to put a finishing touch on something. But if it was going to take that long, I know it sounds prideful to say, I think it was worth the 40 some odd year wait to finish this strong and have something that has had this kind of staying power and this kind of opportunity to serve a wide variety of people out there I would never have known without it.
Terrific. Well, thank you so much for being on the show today. And we'll have you introduce yourself one last time.
Well, Jeremy, it was a lot of fun being here. You know my zeal and my affection for you, and my impressions of what you've done so far and what you continue to do. So I'm grateful to be able to be part of it. Even the fact that you would consider having me here today is pretty humbling. Again, I'm Mitchell Palmer, founder, president, CEO of This Little Hell Enterprises, Gentleman Barber, and the executive room at Gentleman Barber in Sandy, Utah. Glad to meet everybody. Look forward to hearing some of your own stories. And I really appreciate it again, Jeremy. All the love and respect in the world that I can have, I have for you.
And thank you again. Oh, these are the people in your neighborhood, in your neighborhood, in your neighborhood. Oh, these are the people in your neighborhood. They're the people that you meet when you're walking down the street. They're the people that you meet each day.